Hello, this is Mad Cat, the angry egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today is another edition of Mad Cat Smash Feminists. Rah! Oh my god, YouTube's actually staying mute this time. All right, and remember, feminists, think before you speak. I know I said this last week, but do you really hear yourselves when you say this crap? All right, so it's a little unorthodox that I'm doing a show on Monday. I've been doing it on Wednesday for about, I'd probably say like 6 months. So I'm changing the format a little bit. Last week, I decided to do one video instead of several videos in a day. And I realized that in order to accomplish that, I probably should divide up between number of days of the week to do this. So I'm going to be starting to do a Monday and Thursday format. Now, on occasion, that will change. You know, sometimes I'll be doing videos with other people, such as the Honey Badgers. So I might, instead of doing Monday, might do a Tuesday, and instead of doing a Thursday, I might do a Wednesday. So we'll see how that goes. Let's go ahead and get started. I apologize, but my computer's acting stupid today, so. Come on. There we go. Yeah, I'm in serious need of a new computer. All right. So, parents devastated after circumcision goes horribly wrong. Excuse me. Now, I won't read too much into this one, but I will state that in 2013, this couple, they just gave birth to a child, and the child underwent a circumcision, and with hours after having the circumcision, died. So we won't spend too much time on this article, but let's go ahead and go through some highlights of it. The couple had appealed an earlier ruling by the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, which oversees medical professionals, but it was upheld. The emergency department doctor who treated Ryan was merely cautioned for not treating the first stage of hypovolemic shock, from which Ryan died after losing nearly 40% of his blood, according to the National Post. And the pediatrician who performed the circumcision was simply urged to be mindful of the procedure's dangers, the newspaper reported. CPSO communication coordinator Catherine Clark tells Yahoo Parenting that the organization is not able to provide information about these decisions as they did not result in an outcome that can be made public by the CPSO. Hamadi revealed that she and her husband were persuaded to circumcise Ryan by their pediatrician and felt something had gone seriously wrong soon after the procedure. Although the doctor reportedly told the CPSO that the circumcision was uneventful and that there was no bleeding, when he checked Ryan, Amade said he was bleeding and it only got worse over just hours. It was so obvious that the blood his tiny body had lost that he was in danger. So basically, the child received a circumcision. And the result of that is he started bleeding from his penis. And they were originally told just to kind of wait it out, that it would stop on its own, that it would clot, and yet it didn't. And because of their doctor's advice to wait, the child ended up dying when they knew right away there was a problem. They weren't taken very seriously until they finally took it to the emergency room, and the baby died because it lost 40% of its blood. I mean, you lose 40% of your blood, it's going to be quite challenging for you to survive. Think about how you might feel just giving a little bit of blood to the Red Cross. So I love this comment by the CDC. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends that doctors speak with parents about the health benefits of the procedure, including decreased chances of contracting HIV, sexually transmitted disease, and urinary tract infections. Okay, for the first two, God, for being the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they are complete idiots. Because circumcision doesn't prevent HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. If you stick your dick in a contaminated pussy that has either HIV or some other sexually transmitted disease, guess what? You're infected. The cutting off the foreskin of your penis doesn't suddenly protect you, because you know what happens with foreskin? It's stretched back as you stick it in, and when you ejaculate, it goes upstream, or your skin absorbs it. And yet this is a common myth that is believed about circumcision of, oh, well, we have to do it or else he'll get AIDS. No, he'll get AIDS if he's dumb enough to stick his dick in a bitch that has HIV. Don't put the responsibility on the man of whether or not he has a circumcision. That is retarded. And I would expect the CDC to know better. But then again, since you let Mary Koss convince you that men can't be raped, who am I to say anything? And I believe that this was all there was to this story. I mean, it's a very depressing story, in all honesty. The child shouldn't have died at all. But this is a very unnecessary procedure that is being performed, and had they left the child alone, had they left the foreskin alone, the child would be alive today. And of course, the common excuse I'm seeing, especially in the comment section, which I won't be going through today, is, oh, well, this is such a rare occurrence. In fact, it's mentioned in this article that this is a rare occurrence. It actually isn't. This happens a lot more often. There are complications for it. In fact, I was reading about one person who had a botched circumcision. So the doctor told them, well, you need to go ahead and remove their penis and raise them as a girl, and got famous on the idea that gender was a social construct and it was something that was learned, even though the child eventually grew to embrace being male because he knew he was male, and then eventually committed suicide in his 30s. That was just an interesting story I happened to read. But we need to stop circumcision. I know I'm not the first person to say that, but I strongly feel that way. And yes, I was circumcised, and it has affected my sex life. Like in broadcasting, there is also a percentage to prevent all kinds of ailment. The child will also be dead, but details. Let's snip away. Yeah. Well, and there's also me and Hannah Wallen explored this together, but there is money to be made from foreskins that medical research and even women's cosmetic can benefit from the cells from foreskin. So, and hospitals do get quite some money for it as well. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on. As you can see, we got a number of articles to get through today, so I'm just going to try to be as fast as I can with this. Okay, so let's see if this video loads up for me. So you can't really hear it, but you'll be able to see the commentary. My kind of feminism. Feminist looks like anybody. A feminist can be anyone. Whatever it is that you look like, if you're a feminist. Okay, it's being retarded. Okay, so it's a bunch of women saying that anyone can be a feminist. Everyone is basically a feminist. And the words slut and bossy are bad words to call a person, and they feel so bad when they're called these things. But notice that this video is about 3 girls, not one guy there, not at all. So I believe this is a story out of Australia. A 16-year-old feminist, Stella Bridie, was sick of being called bossy and bitchy at school. Oh no, you get called shit at school. Everyone does. I certainly was made fun of. And I lived. And, if you don't like being called bossy and bitchy, then maybe you should stop acting like a domineering bitch. I know I'm talking to a 16-year-old girl, but I mean, someone needs to slap some sense into this girl, because if she cannot handle being called names in high school, then she's going to have a very tough time in life. And you know what? You might want to consider taking those as badge of honors if you're proud of your behavior. Sometimes, especially in writing, we're taught that if you piss someone off, you must be doing something right. If the worst that people can do to you is call you names, you might be doing something right. If someone calls me an asshole, a shitlord, if they try to say that I'm a misogynist or a rapist or something, I'm going to be thinking I'm doing something right. Because they're not arguing my points, they're referring to name calling. But let's continue. She sees herself as ambitious and assertive. She's unafraid of asking teachers tough questions and taking up leadership roles. Really? She's unafraid of doing that, but she doesn't like being called bitchy and bossy. It doesn't sound like she's unafraid to me. It sounds like she's a spoiled little girl who will ask tough questions, but then bitch about being called bossy. Where? You need your bottle, baby? But these efforts landed her a reputation as being too straightforward, a description commonly attributed to female rather than male students. Bullshit! Trust me, in school, especially in high school, When I was going there, if you were asking the teachers questions a lot, teachers tend to not like you. If you were giving the teachers a hard time because you didn't agree with anything, they would actually stop answering your questions. They would tend to give you a lower grade. So, don't tell me that being too forthright is only a problem for women. It's a problem for all students. Stop making this a gendered issue. It's a subtle sort of sexism that strong female teenagers routinely endure in the classroom, the Fitzroy High School student says. It's a type of sexism that is easy to try to justify or disregard. Oh, the world is going to eat you up unless you can find a feminist safe house, which you probably will. Some of the smartest people I know are women, but it doesn't change the fact that they think they're not good enough and feel that they can't share that intelligence with the world because they might be laughed at. Again, so do men. Many men feel intimidated to be smart because their peers around them tend not to be as smart as them. Their peers around them seem to want, this or that. And if they try to say, hey, how about we do this? They're afraid of being ridiculed. Now, while nerd culture is a lot more popular than it was back in my day, it is still tough for some boys in the school, So again, don't tell me the problems you face is gendered. The only reason why you think it's only women is because you're a girl. And you can't put your mind into another. You can't try to understand what a male goes through. Instead, you have to say, well, this is a problem that women face. And so I'm being oppressed. I'm the subtle sexism. You stupid, stupid girl. Trying to hold back because I realize I'm talking about a 16-year-old girl and I don't want to be a monster. Jeez. But still, yeah, someone needs to slap the fuck out of this girl and say, grow the fuck up. Stop trying to victimize yourself. Stop trying to compartmentalize yourself and say that the whole world needs to change around you. This is the world. Accept it. You want to make changes, go ahead and do so. But don't expect everyone to walk on eggshells around you because you don't like being called names. And stop treating your problem as unique to you or unique to women. So they want to start a new program at the school called Fight Back, started by Brianni O'Keefe. The course, which has been aligned with the Victorian curriculum and is aimed at male and female secondary students, include 30 lessons of systematic sexism, the objectification of women, the link between gender inequality and violence against women. Noticing a pattern here, this is a very, very feminist curriculum, which basically state that men are bad. Oh yeah, this will be a great class. Students taking the course are asked to reflect on their experience of objectification, compare images of famous men and women in the media, deconstruct sexist cartoons, and debunk hairy armpit myths about feminists. Is the last one really necessary? Really? Is that a major concern in the feminist movement that someone might think that feminists have hairy armpits? Like in broadcasting, I said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Being bossy is a description of how you act as a leader, not an attempt to prevent you from being one. If you're being called bossy or bitchy, find out why and change your style of leadership. Look, men can be called bossy too. I've been called bossy many times, especially by people upset that they think I might be trying to take over a project or I'm just trying to do things my way. I try very hard to show people that I'm not doing that, but I've been called bossy before, and it didn't stop me from being a leader. People are going to call you all sorts of names, but if that affects your ability to be a leader, then you shouldn't have been a leader in the first place, because a leader can deal with criticism. A good leader knows that their subordinates will most likely talk behind their back. And that's a good thing. I know that sounds bad, but if they don't like you, they need to bitch about you. And so long as you don't hear it, but more than likely, you're not hearing them call you bossy and bitchy. If anything, you're probably hearing that you're being called that behind your back. But you make it sound like they're coming up to your face and saying it, which I seriously doubt they are. We're trying to get young men and women to think a bit more critically about the sorts of sexist behaviors they might engage in or see on a daily basis, says O'Keefe. The Feminist Collective started as a lunchtime session on feminism and turned into an elective offered twice a week. The classes became a safe place for a young feminist event. The students were angry that good friends were falling victim to eating disorders, that while middle-class men dominated their reading lists, their objectifying images of girls they knew were circulating on Facebook, and that they were being branded as feminazis on social media. The collective also faced opposition in the playground, Stella says. Male students argued that they should form a men's rights collective to protect themselves against feminists. Well, here's a news flash. You want equality, then you should allow them to have a men's rights collective. This shouldn't be a complaint. If you want feminism, then it's only fair to let a men's rights group exist. However, you don't see it that way. You will see it as, oh, well, feminism cares about men too, so you don't need a men's rights group. If you want to participate, you can come join our group, which is complete bullshit, because feminism doesn't cater to men. It uses men as a scapegoat so women don't have to face responsibility of their own actions. That is why you have a problem with a men's rights collective. It got increasingly aggressive, says Stella, and these are lovely people. I try to stay calm, but when I left, I just burst into tears because there were a couple of my really good friends that just yelled at me for simply saying I want rights. No, that's not why you cried, and that's not why they yelled at you. More than likely, you told them that, oh, well, women are oppressed and objectified and men are awful and they do these horrible things. You need my feminist class so you know how to be good people. You probably went in there with that attitude, and they probably told you to go fuck yourself. They probably said, fuck you, you little cunt. How dare you say that to me? How dare you say to your friend who's always been supportive of you that I'm somehow the problem with society, that my whole gender defines me? You don't want to be defined by your gender, but you're willing to define us by our gender? Fuck you. And that's probably when you turned away and cried, oh, they called me names. I was only trying to help them. Yeah, that's probably what happened. And that's why you're crying like a little bitch instead of standing up for your principles. Because you probably attack them. Because that's what feminism does. And maybe if you put on your big girl panties, you can see that. So Keefe says that the course is taught at a critical time in a male student's life, when the national community attitudes towards violence against women surveys show younger men, particularly those aged 16 to 25, are more likely to hold attitudes that support violence. Yeah, I'd like to see how that survey went. Hey, do you like sports? Yeah, you're violent towards women. Oh, do you like looking at pornography? Yeah. Okay, violence towards women. Of course, they say that 3 boys are part of a class along with 10 girls. Initially found the experience confronting, she says. So let's look at a couple of comments here. I tried to highlight them, but then it ends up looking like this. So, my thoughts exactly. Utter disgust brainwashed children with the man-hating garbage that third-wave feminism has become. They preach equality, but when the last time you've ever heard a feminist protest against any negative effects that affect men? Oh yeah, that's right. Men don't have problems, just women. I believe my favorite summary of feminism is feminism, the belief that you can achieve equality by ignoring the needs of 50% of the population. Truly disgusted by this. I'm sorry to my friends in Australia that you have to deal with this shit. I guess the current white male view of society are taught is not indoctrination. And these lovely people, I try to stay calm where I read that. What rights do men have that women don't? Is anyone able to name a single one that applies in Australia? I think there's a reason why less women are identifying as feminists in more recent years than previously. When some people like Germaine Greer cancels a talk at a university because she's being harassed by feminists who claim Greer holds misogynistic views, you can really tell that feminist has run its course. The new lot are crazy. Well, I don't know if Germaine Greer is really a good example there, because you know what? Feminists don't like someone. They have a right not to let them speak, especially if their views don't hold up to the modern current incarnation. I can't really blame feminists for not wanting someone that goes against everything they believe in. Certainly, feminism has evolved since Germaine Greer got onto the scene back in the 70s. So, no, that's not really a good argument. It is okay. Let me read this right here. I believe. Please tell me where the children are indoctrinated with a male view of the world. The present education system is biased towards girls. A majority of teachers are women. We have much higher dropout rates for boys. Teenage boy suicide is a real problem, 5 to 1 versus girls. And university graduation favors women, with 60% of graduates being women. Do we really want to bias the system even more against boys by introducing these types of programs? It's not indoctrination per se. It is providing an alternative female-focused framework with which to view society. That said, these undoubtedly intelligent and assertive girls partaking in such a subject will find problems when they apply for courses with particular entry criteria, such as medicine, and realize that they should have studied math and science in year 12 instead. Oops. Well, they still can. This is an elective course twice a week. That doesn't prevent them from studying math and science, so that's kind of a weak argument there. Bev, it's not indoctrination and it's not man-hating. And NSW, these ideas that have been taught since the beginning of the new HSC in the English curriculum quite a few years ago. Once the students see the light, it's wonderful to see how they can all work together to make a better world. I credit these ideas with being a wonderful change to young males. You see the young fathers taking share of child rearing. Well, most of the time, fathers do want to take part in that, and then you have women who decide that they don't want the fathers a part of the equation. Having equal partners in all way, treating women as equals, not secondary citizens. They tend to do so. If women are being treated less than idealized, realize that men treat each other the same way as they treat women. Treating them with respect and not continually putting them down. But you don't really seem to care about men putting each other down. The benefits are widespread and positive, and the males are much happier as well as the females. And how are you measuring that happiness? I'm sure it's already bringing better and more long lasting marriages. Citation, please. It's the patriarchy, which is indoctrination, no such thing, and ancient and medieval ideas of women hating, which finally has been laid to rest. The medieval times, which I study extensively, didn't hate women. In fact, women were quite capable of working jobs along with men. Now, yes, there was still some restriction, but especially after the bubonic plague, society required that a woman start working as hard as a man did. It wasn't until the Renaissance era did some of that misogyny start, when the church determined that a woman's place was in the home. But it wasn't society that really decided that. Although you could argue that the church and society were kind of the same thing back then. The young children grow up as are examples of these ideas, which are perpetuating to younger grades. It's a better, fairer world. How are you determining that? Perhaps some schools have not seen those benefits yet, depending on individual existing cultures, which are difficult to change. I'm guessing you're trying to say that if boys are committing suicide, it's because they don't have feminism in their life. But slowly it will come. To repeat, it's a positive social change. Please think about it. Look around you and see the damage that old ideas have done to our society for hundreds of years. Notice that you're saying that it's doing this, but not saying what or how it's being damaged. Older generations still suffer from the grim stranglehold of the patriarchy. The domination, wow, this is just wow. This is horrible. Someone has really drank the Kool-Aid. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. I'll go through this article quick, but 6 things to know about fourth wave feminism. So I believe Andrea Dworkin said that at the turn of the 21st century, it was fourth wave feminism. There are still some feminists who believe we're in the third wave and not the fourth wave. Some who suggest that the fourth wave is somehow trying to fix the efforts of the third wave, which I can only hope, but I seriously doubt. So here are the 6 things to know. Fourth wave feminism is queer. If third wave feminism heavily influenced by queer theory from the likes of Judith Baker, Ave Koskowski, Sedgwick, and Jack Halberstam, then fourth wave feminism was founded upon the queering of gender and sexually based binaries. Okay, that doesn't really tell me a whole lot. Fourth wave feminism is sex positive. Although sex positive movement began in third wave, if you believe the fourth wave began when Valenti said it during the post-interview part of the 21st century, then the entire slut walk movement and the new brand of sex positive is herald is firmly in the fourth wave. Yeah, Valenti, who complained that she's not being street harassed, despite saying that street harassing is a form of oppression. Yeah, that's a good role model for the fourth wave. Fourth wave feminism is trans inclusive. Trans folks and trans issues have taken a whole more visible role both in popular culture and within the feminist movement. If there's a fourth wave, I thought you said there is a fourth wave. It is decidedly trans inclusive. Yeah, feminism has always used the trans issue to try to bolster themselves, but they don't really care about the trans issue. I'm sure some within the movement do, but as a whole, feminism tends not to care. They use them as a weapon. Fourth wave feminism is anti-misandrist. Although misandry can seem like the easiest way to combat misogyny, fourth wave feminists understand that centering queerness means embracing the myriad ways gender stereotypes, particularly masculine one, can hurt us all. Notice that you put masculine as something that can hurt you all. Yeah, there's myriad ways, but it's the masculine ones especially that can hurt us all. You know what we call that thinking? Misandrist. You're being misandrist within your own fucking post. And sadly, you don't see it. Fourth wave feminism is body positive. Basically telling people, no matter how you look, you're fine just the way you are. Let's not concern yourself with, any sort of health issue. Now, I'm always of the belief if you're happy the way you are, fine, but don't expect the world to be happy with the way you are. That's not the world's responsibility. The world is going to have whatever opinion it does. The body positive movement has skyrocketed with the advent of the internet, and we now have access to empowering representation of bodies of different shapes, sizes, colors, and abilities. The fourth wave relies on this visual representation of diversity to thrive. And 6, fourth wave feminism is digitally driven. Although the internet does not solely define the fourth wave feminism, it is an engine that drives the discourse from hashtag activism to digital forums that create community, foster debate, encourage in real life action. So this is a fluff piece about whether or not fourth wave feminism actually exists. And if it does, these are the benefits. But it could just be the evolution of third wave feminism, and that's what we could still be in. It's a completely useless article. Positive improvement. Good to see you. Society as a whole is becoming more trans inclusive. Feminism doesn't get to take credit for that. Fourth wave feminism is anti-health. Gotcha. And they pretty much are. They are anti-health. I mean, look, a girl that is big can still lead a full active life, but she is going to have some health issues. She is going to have high cholesterol, more than likely. She's going to have heart problems, more than likely. She's going to have problems with her knees, problems with her backs, more than likely. And people should be in shape. Hell, I'm still not understanding our obsession with bacon. I mean, sure, it's good, but God, it makes us like fat lards. I know, I shouldn't shame bacon. Okay, so this is going to be a 2-part article that I'm doing today. Transgendered woman Tara Hudson moved to female prison. So Tara Hudson, 26, from Bath, was jailed for 12 weeks and placed at an all-male HMP Bristol after admitting assault. The BBC understands now she's been taken to HM Prison Eastwood Park in South Gloucestershire. You ever notice there's a lot of shires in UK? I'm just saying. I don't know anything about the UK. So as we can see here, she looks very much like a woman, okay? So she was sent to a male prison, which that seems like a pretty bad thing. She was originally a man, but in her entire adult life, as we'll see, she lived as a woman. She looks pretty much like a woman. So how could have something like this have happened? Oh, I'm told by positive improvement, shire equals town. Okay. So that would make sense why we see a lot of shires. I don't know these things. More than 140,000 people have signed petition calling for Hudson to be moved, with supporters claiming she had been placed in danger of sexual violence. So she was placed in prison where she could have been raped. But the fact that men can also be raped in male prison is not a concern for anyone. It's only a concern because she has the body of a woman. So, oh no, she might be raped. Let's send her to women's prison, which we'll talk about in just a moment. She has had reconstructive surgery and lived as a woman all her adult life, but is still legally a man. Well, how is it possible to be a woman and still be legally a man? Mr. Recorder Llewellyn Selleck said at the hearing at Bristol Crown Court that Hudson had a worrying criminal record which contained numerous offenses, which we'll talk about in a moment. Okay. So basically, long story short, the reason why she was defined as a man is because legally she was a man. Even though she lived as a woman, even though she had reconstructive surgery, her birth certificate said that she was a man. Now, in order to get that change to be legally seen as a woman, she needed a gender recognition certificate, which she did not have. If she had that, she would have been legally seen as a woman and sent to women's prison. That is the reason why she didn't follow the rules, which more than likely she was told, if you want, if you're going to go through with this, you need to get a gender recognition certificate, because what they will do is they will give you a new birth certificate that shows the gender that you are now qualified to be, which is female. Now, it's unfortunate that she did go to male prison, and I do agree she should have gone to female prison, but not for the fear of, oh, she might be raped, because you know what? Men might be raped in prison. That's not really a valid excuse for me. Maybe a danger to her life. Yeah, I could accept that. Her being female, prisoners might get a little bit aggressive on that. They haven't seen a woman in a long time, and for all intents and purposes, she is a woman. So her life, her safety, that I can understand. But the whole rape excuse, no. That's not an excuse. Because if you're that concerned with rape, then you need to be concerned that men are getting raped in prison. But here is the UK's transgendered prison rules. Prisoners should be placed according to their gender as recognized by UK law, usually as stated on their birth certificate. If a person has obtained a gender recognition certificate, they will have a new birth certificate in their acquired gender. Prisoners who obtain a gender recognition certificate while in prison should in most cases be transferred to the estate of their acquired gender. Yeah, I don't see this one being abused at all. Men who want to go to female prison, so they'll do everything they can to become a woman just so they won't be a male prison anymore. I mean, hell, if I was in prison, I think that's the path that I would take, because God knows I'd be someone's bitch. I'm not exactly that strong or intimidating. So yeah, I'd probably be someone's bitch. If I'm going to be someone's bitch, I might as well become a bitch and try to get into female prison. Not that female prison is much easier. But the rules also say some transgender people will be sufficiently advanced in their gender assignment process that they could be placed in the estate of their acquired gender, even if the law does not yet recognize that they are of their acquired gender. When issues arise, a case conference should be held to review the prisoner's individual circumstance and make a recommendation. Now, a prison service spokesperson said, it is long-withstanding policy to place offenders according to their legally recognized gender. Had she got the certificate, this wouldn't have been a problem. the law was working exactly as it should have worked. Okay? She was legally a male, and they made a determination based on her birth certificate. If she wanted to be recognized as a female, then she should have gone through the proper channels to do that. I'm sorry, but you want to take on the responsibility of changing your genders, then you're responsible for all the paperwork. And yeah, she shouldn't have been sent to that, and the court should have been a little bit like, oh, wait a minute, we can't assign her to there because she's actually a woman, but still the law tries to be immutable, that it's like, oh, well, it says here she's a man, so we'll assign her to a male prison. Positive improvement. To be fair, she would be a bigger target for rape than even effeminate men, which is true. Wow, that's my plan now too. I'm guessing if he's ever in prison, he's going to try to change his gender to be a woman. If orange is the new black has taught me anything, it's that there are no bad people in women's prison. However, our guidelines allow room for discretion, and in such cases, medical experts will review the circumstances in order to protect the emotional well-being of the person concerned. Our top priority is the safety and welfare of those in our custody. Bullshit. You don't care about that. You only care if there's a woman that could potentially be harmed. And decisions relating to the location of transgendered prisoners are taken by a range of people, including psychologists, healthcare professionals, and prison staff. Last Friday, the makeup artist was jailed after she admitted headbutting a barman in Bath, causing damage to his teeth. Yeah, she physically assaulted a bartender, is what we call them in America. I guess barman is what they call them in the UK. Excuse me. She has 8 previous convictions, including offenses for battery, and has hoped her punishment would be less severe. She has had 8 fucking convictions. 8. And she has never faced a day in jail? Gee, I wonder why. Is it because she is a woman now and she gets to have the benefit of getting a slap on the wrist for any violent crime she commits? I mean, my God, she got convicted for battery and she never faced jail time before? Yeah, and when they come to convict her now, I mean, weeks prior, she had been released from court saying, okay, you did something bad, and I'm not entirely sure what it was. But then 3 weeks later, she headbutts a bartender, and they're like, nope, you're going to jail this time. I mean, she was wanting electrical monitoring device and a alcohol awareness class. Yeah, she should have gone to jail. I'm sorry. And anyone who tries to say different, you're part of the problem. 8 convictions, including battery, including assault. And this is the first time she went to prison? Don't tell me for 1 minute that men and women are treated equally under criminal court of law. This is proof that men and women are not treated equally. And given that she went through 8 times, she might have realized, hey, there's a chance I could go to jail. I need to make sure that if that ever happens, that I don't get sent to the wrong prison. And not just assume, well, I have fucking tits. They should know that I shouldn't go there. But no, the reason why she probably had so many convictions is because she's not very smart. Yeah, it says here, but a magistrate said the assault, which came 3 weeks after Hudson had been given a conditional discharge, was so serious that the custody could be justified. Okay, so let's look at the second part of my topic on this today. So this was some of the abuse that she received. And they'll report the most horrific stuff that she received while she was in prison. So what bad thing happened to her in prison that made her afraid for her life? But the makeup artist, who's still legally a man, told an appeal hearing she had suffered frightening taunts over her gender, including chants of, "Dara, Dara, show us your tits." Really? That's the worst thing that happened to you, is people chanted at you? Oh no, that's scary. Oh my God, that's like catcalling, but in prison. I'm sorry, but you can't make me feel sorry for you that you got chanted at in prison. I mean, if that's the worst that happened to you, you got off easy. A judge at Bristol Crown Court dismissed her bid to be released from jail, but said that the prison service should consider where she spends the rest of her 12-week sentence. So she headbutts a man in a bar. And the reason why is because the bartender said she had too much to drink. And so she headbutts the man, and she only gets a 12-week sentence. To my UK viewers, what would a man get? Because in America, a man might get a year to 5 years in prison for assault, but she gets 12 weeks. And you know what? I don't want to say anything bad about the court system, but you know what? I'm willing to bet that they sent her to a male prison on purpose to try to scare her straight. To try to say, this is the worst of the worst. And if you keep down this path, you're going to suffer. You're going to be in prison. You need to turn your fucking life around. I'm willing to bet that that's what actually happened. They wanted to teach her a lesson. It's wrong that they did that, but I'm willing to bet that that's what happened. I think positive improvement. I think Tara needs to watch an episode of Oz. So a court heard Hudson had been separated from the rest of the prison population and locked in a cell 23 hours a day. You know what? Most prisons in America, that's actually standard practice, to be locked in a cell for 23 hours a day with only 1 hour to go out and play in the yard, minus mealtime. Mr. Ragg said the clang of a prisoner's door should never be pleasant. It should have a sobering effect on a person. But Miss Hudson has had an awful time. She found it unrelenting and frightening. So does everyone else who goes to prison. That's kind of the point. I'm guessing this is a pre-op video photograph, since other photographs we see bigger tits. Maybe, I don't know. The court heard a very drunk Hudson had headbutted B at one bar manager, Christopher Dyer, after she was refused any more alcohol. Mr. Dyer needed 1,500 pounds worth of dental surgery following the attack. I think that's pounds, or it could be euros. I'm not really sure. But let's just say, I think that's what, 2,000 American dollars worth of dental surgery after the attack. And I believe the medical system is cheaper in the UK than it is in America. So it could have been up to $5,000, 5,000 US dollars. So it's hard for me to feel sorry for this woman if she actually deserved to be in jail and the worst thing she got was chanting. Okay, so I'm doing another 2-part article And this is more specifically about this woman here, Jess Phillips. So waiting for the page to load up. So people in the UK probably already know about this, but people in America probably not so much. So we'll cover more about Jess Phillips in this article, and then the second article, we won't cover so much about her. Extraordinary thing happened in the House of Parliament on Tuesday. A member of the 7-strong backbench business committee burst out laughing at the suggestion that MPs should be allowed to debate a range of gender issues, including domestic violence, suicide, and premature rates. In an age when offending the sensibility of anti-sexism campaigners can cause Nobel laureates to be sacked and drive astrophysicists with unfortunate dress sense to tears of redemption, it is a miracle there hasn't been another hysterical lynching in the court of public opinion. At least it would be if it were a male politician caught on camera chortling at the suggestion that Parliament should discuss issues like violence against women, breast cancer screening, and eating disorders. The reason the media hasn't grabbed hold of Snickergate yet is that the snickering MP is female, and the gendered problems she appears to find funny are issues that disproportionately affect men and boys. So a woman is laughing at the idea of having a debate on International Men's Day about men's issue, and she laughed. Here we can see her laughing. On the day that Jess Phillips MP, I'm not sure what MP stands for. Oh, I love positive improvement. Response like, oh, this bitch. Yeah, this bitch. Snickered at the suggestion that men's issues should be discussed in Parliament on International Men's Day. Another 13 men died from suicide. It's not funny. Not for the men whose lives were lost, and not for the friends and families. Suicide is a men's issue, and if we don't talk about the problem, we can't solve it. Now, it does happen for women as well, but I think this is saying that this is disproportionately a men's issue since men are more likely to commit suicide than women. On the day, the Labour member of Birmingham Yardley clasped her hands over her mouth to stop herself from gawking at Phillips Davies MP's request for a debate on men's issue. More than 200 men died of cancer. As a nation, we spend more time, money, and energy trying to prevent, detect, and cure female cancer in the UK, and yet our men are 58% more likely to die of cancer before the age of 65 than women. I don't think it's hilarious, not for the men who died before their time, and not for the loved ones they leave behind. Men of classes have a lower life expectancy than women of the same background. It's a men's issue. Like all men's issues, we can't solve it if we don't discuss it. So other things, more than 2,000 men and boys were victims of a violent crime. I guess that was the only thing they had. To me, it is no joke that men and boys are the main victim of both men's violence and women's violence. Yet while we have strategies to end violence against women and girls, there are no strategies to tackle violence against men and boys. Again, this is all in the UK, but this is pretty much the first world. She got elected to serve her constituents, said by Positive Improvement, not just her female constituents. We'll actually see her reply on that today, Positive Improvement. Men are more likely to be murdered or violently assaulted than women. And male victims of intimate violence, like sexual assault and domestic violence, are less likely than female victims to get help. That's a man's issue that will never be resolved if we don't make the time to discuss it. And what about dads who are less involved in their children's lives than they'd like to be for a whole host of personal, cultural, and legal reasons? What about the fact that boys underperform girls at every stage of education and are less likely to go to a university? How about men being more likely to be unemployed or homeless or in prison or addicted to drugs and alcohol? What about the fact that the overwhelming majority of people who die at work every year are men? There are many different factors causing issues like these, but one thing unites them all. We're so concerned about addressing these issues because we collectively we're more tolerant of the harm happening to men and boys. This tolerance is held in place by the underlying threat that anyone who tries to highlight these issues will be met with derision and ridiculed. I've been promoting the celebration of International Men's Day in the UK since 2010, and each year at least one high-profile woman will use it as an opportunity to denigrate men. In 2013, blogger and journalist Fleet Street Fox wrote that men should take a break from raping for a day. Now, Jess Phillips had some responses to this, so we'll actually take a look at her Twitter feed. Yes, mother of 2 sons, sister of 3 brothers. I don't hate men. I hate fools who think men don't have equality. I don't think equality means what you think it does, because if men had equality, that would mean that women also have equality. You know, I think what you're meaning is right. Even then, that would be wrong, but it would be more correct than this statement. So, how about you learn the dictionary definition of equality before you talk? Because I hate fools who don't understand the meaning of the word equality. Positive improvement. I feel like my name will be said a lot in this stream. People that will watch this later are going to be confused. People tend to understand that I interact with my chat as it happens, so I don't think people will be too confused. But you are bringing up a lot of good points, so please keep them coming. Okay, so how many male victims did your domestic violence organization help and provide refugees places for? And her response, no one ever asked for one, but I ran both male domestic violence and SV services. I'm guessing sexual violence. Well, if no one ever asked for them, how could you run a male domestic violence and sexual violence service? How did that work? The website says they only help women and children. And then she states that it doesn't. But it says the link looks promising. We're not going to take a look at these, but specific about refugees, as I said, no man ever asked for a refugee in my 5 years. Maybe perhaps your employer had such a sexist name, and because sexists won't ever allow a debate on male victims. And it was called Sandwell Women Said. Yeah, it's directed at women, and yet it's for men as well. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's good to backpedal now. It's like, well, no. It was for men. Men just never asked for it. Why would men go to a woman's shelter when in the past all women's shelters have been discriminatory towards men? And I'm willing to bet that men did try to go to you, and you said, and the people there is like, no, this is only for women. So yeah, nice try backpedaling there. If you're going to try to backpedal, why don't you try to show, oh, well, we did have someone here and there. Let's see, is there any other place that she comments? Well, sure there was, but there was a part where she kept going on about how um she cares about men's rights, and she's not against them. She was just against this idea of having a debate just because women also had it. And that was the excuse that was given. Off to the factory in my constituency to try to mitigate local job losses for men there. See, I don't hate men. Yeah, I'm sure you don't hate men if you make a statement like that, you stupid cunt. Oh, wait, that's not really a bad word in the UK. What's a good bad word for UK women? Positive improvement. I would have had more respect for her if she just owed up to her sexism. Yeah, she said, you know what? You're right. I made a mistake and we should do it. That had been one thing. I would have respected her more for it. Instead, she's trying to no, 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 no. I wasn't actually sexist. You just got to look at it from this slide. Oh, if we completely disregard the facts, oh, yeah, it perfectly makes sense that you're not sexist or misandrist. Oh, why didn't I do that before? Oh, yeah, I have a fucking brain. Both male and female MP discusses women's issues on International Women's Day and have a monthly session of question about women and equality. Our collective inability to provide such political space for men's issue to be discussed too, particularly on International Men's Day, is a sign of nation that's content to turn a blind eye to everyday sexism against men and boys. And this survey, should Parliament debate men's rights on International Men's Day? I voted yes. 95% of the people agree with me. But maybe this year we could make a difference. If you agree with me that men's issues should be discussed in Parliament, why not write to your MP and ask him to support Phil Davies' call for a debate on International Men's Day on 19th November? Sure, they might snicker at you like Jess Phillips, but maybe, just maybe, they'll show themselves to be true egalitarians who believe in equality for everyone, including men and boys they represent. So I'm going to now jump to this article. This is about the same thing, but it kind of takes a different approach. So I'm not going to really look at the stuff specific to Jess Phillips, but I thought this was a good article. Basically, he was carrying a coffin of his friend inside, who was barely 40, a husband, dad of 3, a teaching assistant, and he suffered from depression and just decided he couldn't take it anymore. Tragically, suicide is on the rise. This week, the Equality and Human Rights Commission released a report that contained 2 chilling factors. First, the number of men in their 40s committing suicide is up 40% in 5 years. The second grim finding was that working-class white boys are not only the lowest attending of all educational groups, but they are falling further behind than ever. I don't know what bent is positive improvement. At every educational level, girls now outperform boys. And to our eternal shame and improvisation, white boys are faring the worst of all ethnic groups. Just 28.3% of white boys on school-free meals achieve at least 5 GCSE at A's to C's in England in 2012-13. In contrast, Chinese pupils perform exceptionally regardless of wealth, and 76.8% of those on free school meals are achieving the GCSE threshold. I'm not sure what the GCSE really is, but I'm imagining it's some sort of standard that you have to earn an A to a C to consider passing. Most of us have previously written on the shocking shockingly poor educational attainment of poor white boys. Yet there has been no government inquiry nor emergency think tank set up. Instead, high profile pushes for more girls in STEM subjects attract the ticker tape fanfares. Most tragically of all, absolutely nothing is being done about any of this. Yet when men do speak up about it, they are ridiculed, ignored, and even called misogynist simply for having the temerity to care about men dying or boys failing. Remember the little girl who cried because she tried to stand up for equal rights? Well, this is what happens in the real world for men. That we try to speak up about these issues and we're called misogynists. We're called rape apologists. We're called hating women. And of course, it goes a bit into Jess Phillips in relation to this. You have no excuse. You have to excuse me for laughing, but as the only woman on this committee, it seems like every day to me is International Men's Day. Ugh. Yet when I agree, well, let me read this up here first. The incident that was brilliantly critiqued by Glenn Poole on Inside Men and UK organizer for International Men Day in an article which strongly resonated with Telegraph readers. Indeed, a poll on this subject showed that 97% back Davies' call for a debate on men's issue. It's now at 95%. Yet when I tweeted that encouraging news out, the Essex Feminist Collective replied, I'll get back to you when I've stopped laughing, allowing us to make the cruelly bleak conclusion that male misery is becoming comedy gold for some women. Why? Why is it that MP like Miss Phillips and the like of the Essex Feminist Collective find the idea of men's rights variously hilarious, ridiculous, and misogynistic? What are they afraid of? Positive improvement. Bint is a British insult for women, like you asked for. Oh yeah, I forgot that I did that. I don't know. Bint doesn't sound as powerful as cunt. Bint. If the shoe fits, throw it. Positive improvement. So male suicide. Men are raised to desire women and financial career success, but society is stacked in such a way that many of us cannot achieve either. Feminists see male suffering as a form of justice. They do. Yeah. The infantile, you had a millennia of privilege, so tough luck if you're suffering now attitude is damaging, toxic, and increasingly plain cruel. It also further divides the genders when we should be joining together to address the inequalities, not starting ridiculous tit-for-tat spats. And, you know, this was actually something I was hoping for with Suki, Soreta Yuki. And it's unfortunate that he disappeared because I think we could have really gotten some good stuff going. But this is what we need. If we want to be concerned about, you know, violence against women, then it should be violence against everyone, not just women. If we're concerned about rape, it shouldn't be rape against women. We should be concerned about everything. We should be coming to the table together and looking at everything at once and saying, what can we do to resolve these problems? What can we do to reduce these things? Instead, it's only women suffer these problems. And if it's like, well, no, we have some evidence here. Misogynist! Like invasion of the body snatchers. Ah! Just screaming at them like they're somehow wrong. Modern gender politics is turning to an exhaustive game of oppression Olympics. Earlier this year, when I pointed out that UK male-only rape charity has had its funding cut to zero. Oh my fucking God. Cut to fucking zero? A typical reply was, but more women get raped than men. And anyways, these men are raped by other men. Even if that is true, If one rape is too many for a woman, guess what? One rape is too much for a man, and it doesn't matter if it was another man raping a man or a woman raping a man. Now, I know in the US, and I don't know about UK, but I know in the US, by definition of the rape law by the FBI, the only person that could actually rape a man is another man, because it doesn't take into consideration that force to penetrate is a form of rape. And if you try to say, well, the FAQ says it is, no, that's only for collecting data on things. It's not for the actual law. I've looked it up myself. Actually read the FAQ. It doesn't say that this is what the law covers. It only says this is for data collection purposes only. Yeah, I do my fucking homework. We owe it to our failing schoolboys. I owe it to loving, vulnerable men like my mate Nobby. How many more men and boys do we need to put in the ground or watch fail at school and destine themselves to a life of playing catch-up before men's issues get the airing and respect they so desperately deserve? Positive improvement. If you had feminists, egalitarians, humanists, and men's rights activists all working together on issues like rape, I'll bet you could actually reduce the number of rape, reduce the rate. Well, he said rate number dramatically, but I believe he meant rape number dramatically. Either one is fine. And I agree. If we actually started working together and not trying to divide the lines of, oh, well, women are more affected by this, so we should only care about women. And now is the time for me to get angry. Hold on. Let me take a drink of my soda because, well, as you can see, there's a lot of red in this one. Okay, so just give me a moment. Porn is a privilege, not a right. Now, anyone who's watched my channel before, you know I'm a big advocate for pornography. I don't really watch pornography myself, but I believe it is something that is necessary for society to function. Pornography and sex work is necessary. So long as we desire sex, these things should be allowed within society, and that society is better for it. So, but let's go ahead and take a look at this feminist article. Here, let me see if I can zoom this up for you. Okay, that should be good. Time for the smash, Positive Improvement says. In 2013, Collective Service Canada blocked inmates' access to TV channels showing late-night pornography after complaints that female correction officers were feeling harassed. Now, before I get started into this, I'm not entirely sure where I stand on this issue, because to me, if you're in prison, you're being punished. And you shouldn't have rights to things like, I don't know, pornography, because you're being punished. And that's kind of where I stand. It's like, if you're being punished for something, you shouldn't be given, extra privileges that a normal man enjoys. That's like giving beer to men in prison. So that's where I kind of stand in on this, but it could be made for the argument if you consider the Maslow need hierarchy theory, that sexual release is a primary thing that men need, and maybe watching porn helps give them the sexual release they need, so they're less violent, because when you're unable to release that energy, it becomes pent up and you need to get it out of your system some other way. So an argument could be made both ways, so I'm not really sure where I stand on this. Positive improvement. I feel like giving prisoners porn would drop the prison rape rates. Well, I hope that's true, honestly, but let's see what this feminist has to say. It was found that sexually explicit material undermined a person's sense of personal dignity, and in the circumstances under consideration, particularly that of female correction officers, state the record. Harris Naradine, who was an inmate at the time of Archibald Prison in Quebec, filed a grievance, eventually taking his case to federal court, arguing that banning access to porn infringed on his constitutional right to freedom of expression. The judge concluded that banning the channel was not legal, but it seems Quebec Minister of Public Security, Lise Thériault, disagreed. After learning that inmates at Quebec Amos Detention Center were accessing porn via late-night movie channels, she vowed to install parental controls in prisons across the province in order to block access to channels that showed porn. Probably talking about Cinemax, which isn't exactly porn. It's a lot of suggestive stuff, and it doesn't show anything good. Maybe a nipple here and there. Corrections Services Canada is still reviewing the court ruling and the policy. So, in the meantime, there is ample opportunity to debate things like sexuality and morals, and to prove how sexy and unprudish we really are when it comes to men's right to misogyny. So this stupid bitch, this stupid, horrible cunt, is basically saying that men who feel a right to have access to porn really comes down to men's right to misogyny. That we need porn because we don't know how to hate women unless we have porn. You stupid girl. You stupid, horrible person. Oh, but I'm getting started. Oh, I'm really, really going to get angry with this one. Hell, I'm already fucking angry with this report. Ooh, calm down. Calm down. Russia Fuba. Russia Fuba. Okay, I'm calm. I'm calm. I'm okay. I'm okay. Okay, let's go on. And a repulsive but revealing report by Bridget Noel for Vice. She accuses Thériault of pearl clutching and goes on to discuss the issues of sexuality in prison, as though male sexuality is inseparable from pornography. This kind of commentary is useful as it gets at one of the two key issues here: the right to media access, the right to access any media like one likes, and two, the idea that men are unable to function in a healthy manner without access to pornography. What these arguments tell us is that as a society, it's time to stop pretending as though pornography is simply entitlement and therefore innocuous. Pornography is not a neutral form of entertainment. Rather, it's a form of media that reinforces and celebrates female degradation and abuse, as well as racist stereotypes. No, it does not. Because you know what? Women volunteered to go in this. It's not like anyone's holding a fucking gun to any of these porn stars that I know. It's not like anyone is forcing Mercedes Carrera to go down on a guy or get fucked in the ass. She's not being denigrated. She's not being abused. And people who watch porn tend to understand that when they watch it, even if it gets into a little bit of a hardcore action, it's more into the fantasy, but it's not a right to see women getting abused. Most people watch generally safe porn. So don't tell me for 1 minute that it denigrates women, that it abuses racist stereotypes. You fucking stupid person. You are a bint, apparently is the UK term. You fucking cunt. Has anyone ever fucked you before? Have you ever had really good sex before? Because I think you have a motherfucking stick up your ass and you don't know what good sex is from the crap that you get. Well, I'm sure you're a lesbian, so, you don't know what a good cock feels like. Sorry to my lesbian friends out there. I'm just angry right now, and I don't really know what I'm saying. My God, how can you be this stupid? Unless we are prepared to argue that racism and misogyny are either integral aspects of male sexuality or simply neutral and therefore harmless forms of entertainment, we cannot treat porn as sexuality or as a right like access to education or healthcare. As such, we must acknowledge that it is unacceptable for everyone, not simply for inmates. Like in broadcast and networking, what racist stereotypes that black men have small penises? Positive improvement. Maybe she has a black penis stuck up her ass. If pornography is an innate part of men's sexuality, then we must also argue that men naturally want to hurt and abuse women. Oh, I'm standing up for this bullshit. Let me scroll down so I get a better view of this. Okay, maybe not. Then we must also argue that men naturally want to hurt and abuse the women they have sex with, and that men are not capable of masturbating without simultaneously degrading women, as these behaviors so prominently in porn. We must also argue, for example, adult men naturally want to have sex with teenage girls, and the facial abuse is a healthy expression of male sexuality. By facial abuse, I looked this up. What they're talking about is face fucking. Grabbing a girl by the back of the head and forcing your dick in her mouth, which many women like. Mad Cat, misreading things is part of the charm. You are so hating men right now. I'm guessing you've been raped in your life, and it's unfortunate that you have, but you're going to use this to blame all men and say that men are savage beasts. How dare you fucking say that? How dare you say any of this? You have no idea what you're talking about. Men are not naturally violent. Men don't naturally want to hurt women. Men naturally love women and will do whatever we can to protect them. And I'm sure there's some man out there who will try to defend you to me because I'm attacking you, you fucking whore! You fucking bitch! How dare you fucking represent the fucking human race for this type of writing, for your accusations. You don't know a man. Any man in your life is trying to kiss up to you so they can stick their dick in you. That's it. You don't know a real man if one walked right up into your face and slapped you for your stupidity. While folks like Noel assume that access to porn reduces rates of rape and male violence, there's no strong evidence to support this, and moreover, it's an irrational claim. I'm actually out of breath. Both porn consumption and male violence are unambiguous. If it were true that porn reduced violence against women and sexual assault, you think we would have noticed a notable drop. Seeing as porn is so readily accessible online, and so commonly used by men and boys, that sexual assault and other forms of violence against men continue every day globally. So many things wrong with this. One, just for the fact that it happens is not indicative of an epidemic. Okay? Violence against women is always going to exist. Even if feminists completely took over the world, violence against women would continue to exist, just like violence against men would continue to exist. Just like rape would continue to exist. Okay? But let's take a look at her claim. Well, first off, let's take a look at the U.S. population. Let me enlarge this for you. So from the 1800s to about 2010, we've been noticing a nice incline of the U.S. population. Now, I showed to you this on purpose for the next things I'm about to show you, because I don't want someone to come to me and be like, oh, well, you know, the population has changed. Well, yeah, it's only increased. Okay, so let's take a look at U.S. forcible rapes from 1972 to 2013. Let me enlarge this. So now, most likely here, we weren't really reporting on them. And second wave feminists claim that they made rape more of an people aware about it. And I might have to give that to them. So it could have been like up here. But as we start climbing up, we begin to notice that in 1992, rape was at an all-time high. You know what also happened in around 1992, 1993? The internet was introduced to the world. You know, Al Gore invented the internet. And since that time, it's almost at the rate of what it was in 1972. And it looks like it keeps going down. But what about, well, that's just for the internet. What about pornography? Well, let's take a look at some statistics here. So this is some good stuff here, but okay, right here, U.S. adult video sales and rentals. From 1992, it was pretty low. Now remember, 1992 rate was very high, okay? But it started going down, but this kind of plateaued about 1997 and kind of remained that way until 2005. It has dripped down just a little bit. Now this is just for video sales and rentals. So it seems that better accessibility to porn and crime rate drop, there might be a commonality between them. Let's look at U.S. hardcore title releases. Well, the 80s had barely anything. And then by 2000, it starts jumping up about 1995 and continuously grows. Now, this is just titles released. I couldn't get any specifics on this. I tried asking for the Free Speech Coalition, which is a porn advocacy group, which I have high respects for. But we're noticing something here, that as consumption of porn has increased, violent crime has decreased. There's a correlation here that's worth exploring, that maybe better access to sex workers, better access to pornography makes people in general less violent. Let's take a look at some Helen Handbasket. Hello to you. I hope you caught my rant there, because that's what people come to love about me. Positive improvement. Well, Mad Cat will respond to what you said, so enjoy. Ah, he predicted the future. He's a fortune teller, I tell you. Helen, looks like looks like came just in time for the inevitable bit about rape. Positive improvement. An article was trying to claim that rape rates are rising as the result of porn usage. Is there a link to the study or anything? There really isn't a study about any of this. This is just trends that we're noticing about this. And unfortunately, not a lot of study is done into this because most study in this field is given by feminists, and they naturally assume that the viewing of porn is somehow means that you hate women and it's misogynistic. However, if you go over to the Honey Badger Brigade, I did my own research using the global survey system, which has been an act for like since the 70s, asking people a lot of different questions over the last 30 years. And I used that data to be able to determine some interesting facts about those who watch porn versus those who don't, which the overall conclusion is that it shows that people who watch porn tend to be more egalitarian in their thinking than those who don't watch porn. Nothing like what the feminists say. All right, so let's go back to this. There's also plenty of evidence that show that younger and younger boys are acting out scenes from pornography on girls. This article here is talking about a 10-year-old boy who saw a porno and tried to enact it on a girl at school. And rising in levels of violent sex crimes. Just because it happens once doesn't make it a pandemic. You know what? Sometimes you get some bad apples who just decide that they want to have sex so badly that they just have to do it. But that's not indicative of a problem. And this is, something that I have about school shootings, that they say, well, violent video games and misogynistic patriarchy cause boys to be violent. And it's like, if all of this was true, why don't we see more school shootings? We have a large number of children, male children, playing violent video games. Why don't we see more school shootings? Because if you actually look at the numbers, it's like 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of children are actually committing school shootings. And the vast majority of school children aren't. And you're trying to use the same kind of logic. It's like, well, there was a young boy that committed a sexual act, so this is proof that pornography is bad. No, it doesn't work that way. Positive improvement. I'd personally be skeptical about any stat of porn usage and the people who watch it because many people aren't willing to be honest about porn usage. Okay, so we know from both report and personal experiences that both men and boys are pressuring their female partners to engage in sex acts they saw in porn videos. So I see like a girl taking it up the ass while she's looking pussy, and I tell my girlfriend, hey, let's try that. By their definition, that's pressuring. There's nothing wrong with that, honestly. You make it sound like, oh, well, you're forcing your woman into a situation she doesn't want to be in. She can fucking say no. We also know from not being stupid, really? From not being stupid? Because so far you've kind of shown yourself to be stupid. That the images we see in media more generally have an impact on our view of the world and people around us. Racist propaganda teaches people racism. Sexist propaganda teaches people sexism. And fast food propaganda teaches people to buy fast food. Advertising works. That's why companies use it to sell products. Oh, you are way off. Advertisement does not teach people anything. It doesn't teach people to go and buy fast food because guess what? They already know how to buy fast food. You don't need a motherfucking McDonald's commercial to be like, you know what? I forgot how to buy fast food in the last 5 minutes. But this commercial that had nothing to do with how to buy fucking Big Macs just taught me, oh, I should go out and buy a Big Mac. It doesn't work like that. Very few people who see a commercial on TV are suddenly inspired to go and get said thing. No, it doesn't work like that. And you can't then say, well, that's proof that you can learn sexism by watching TV or watching porn. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't at all. And the fact that you think it does tells me, oh, it teaches me that you've never actually watched TV, that you've never actually sat down and actually watched porn. That you're basing this is off of what everyone else has said because not being stupid as you claim, you believe this is true. And that makes you the most stupidest person I ever knew. You are a fucking moron if you think that porn teaches people how to be racist and sexist. The problem with pornography is not, in any case, simply rape. The objectification and sexualization of women is completely normalized in today. So is the sexualization and objectification of men. Don't believe me? Look at a shirtless pic of Chris Hemsworth from the movie Thor and tell me your panties don't get wet. Unless you're a lesbian. But still, I think you'd probably get a little bit tingly down there seeing him or, seeing Loki. Men are objectified and sexualized just as much as women are. The only problem is that the reason why women get more attention is because both men and women objectify and sexualize women more than men. But men still get it too. A result of the mainstream of porn or the entrenchment of porn culture. So the idea that women are things to look at and that our body exists for the purposes of male pleasure and titillation is something that must be discussed in all of this. Was Gail Dines sitting next to you when you were writing this? Was Gail Dines just typing? It's like, I'm going to put your name on here so no one knows that I actually wrote this. Are you sleeping with Gail Dines? Because that would make a whole lot of sense to me right now of you being this stupid. Porn isn't only about teaching men to ejaculate to violent acts, and it isn't only teaching them to be sexually selfish. It's also teaching them how to see and treat women. More generally, it teaches men what we are for. On the CBC's The Current, Anna Maria Tremonte spoke to Nareen and his lawyer, Todd Sloan, who said that from a human rights perspective, prisoners should be able to watch the same programming as the rest of society. Okay, that's an interesting argument worthy of debate. We see examples of this argument all the time, including recently the case of Jian Ghomeshi, who defended his violence against women on the basis of sexuality, arguing that his violence was simply a sexual preference and that the sexual preference are a human right. In this end, society did not accept his excuse because the woman he assaulted made clear that his violence wasn't consensual. But what if he were? The fact that Ghomeshi believed his own rhetoric, employed the language of human rights in his self-defense is notable. Yes, but society is not that stupid because it wasn't consensual. No society in the world, in the first world, would ever excuse rape as a sexual right. Never. if there's not consent, and I'm talking about the modern times, because I'm sure there'll be some feminists out there that'll tell me, well, 100 years ago, they excused this person for rape, saying that was perfectly all right. I'm talking about now. No one in the first world would ever excuse rape as a sexual preference and as a human right. The system is working the way you want it to, and you're still bitching about it. You should be celebrating that this happened, that this man tried to do it, and society said, nope, we're not accepting it. You're going to fucking jail. But no, you can't take that as a victory. You've got to take that as more to prove your fucking point. I'm probably going to lose my voice, but I should have it back by Thursday when I do another one of these videos. Women in pornography technically consent to violence in their contracts. Yeah, it's only in their contracts that they're actually consenting to it. They agree to accept money in exchange for being degraded, abused, gang raped, choked, and called misogynist and racist names. Does consent make that imaginary that a health expression of Does that make imaginary that a healthy expression of male sexuality? I think you need to rewrite that sentence. Our depiction of sexualized violence a human right simply because it exists and some people enjoy it? Is racism and sexism okay so long as a woman agrees to be the target? Okay, now you're really kind of taking this off the deep end here, because now you're saying, oh, well, if a woman consents, is that still okay? Well, first off, yes. If a woman consents to being, degraded, abused, gang raped, choked, then that is her right. And if it's caught on film and other people want to watch it and she doesn't care if other people watch it, then yes, that is her right. But the porn industry is not so insidious. They don't just get women to agree to something, do the worst possible thing they can to them, and then release it to the media saying, hey, she agreed to it. They have a lot more respect than that, but you choose not to see that. I challenge you. I challenge you to go to a porn shoot. I challenge feminists everywhere to actually go to a porn shoot and see how it's actually done. I think you'd be amazed with that. It's nothing like you think it is. Let's take some comments. Advertising, positive improvement. Advertising is more about advocating cravings and brand recognition. Helena. Sorry if I called you Helen. 2 studies with convicted child porn users blocking access to legal porn increases the odds of recidivism. I don't know what that is. Access to legal porn reduce those odds. I'm guessing if someone didn't have access to porn, they won't be able to see that. They will be more likely to reactivate their desire for child pornography or engage in child sex. What article is he reading to us? If you look back, you can see it, but it's privileges. Porn is a privilege, but not a right. The article is suggestive of postmodern 80s crap. Positive improvement. That's probably when the author went to school. This author is clearly trying to find a way to dismiss the consent of porn stars, the technicality consent. The author really wants us to just call porn a form of rape. And see you later, Helen. Thank you for coming out to this. I always appreciate new fans. Okay, so women in pornography technically consent to violence. Oh, well, okay, we already read that. If you believe the answer to these questions is yes, do you also believe that hate speech is a human right? No, I don't believe hate speech is a human right. I don't. If your speech is inciting a type of violence, that's not defended. Now, I could use racial slurs against you, and that is my American right under the First Amendment. But if my hate speech turned into violent speech, which most people do consider to be one and the same, especially against women and minorities, then no, that's not covered. We should be clear at the very least, even to those who wish to pretend consensual racism and sexism are acceptable, is that porn makes women feel harassed, disrespected, and unsafe. Which women is that? You who hasn't had a sexual gratifying moment ever in your life, or porn stars who do this for a living, or women who notably watch porn? Take a look at my Twitter feed. There are plenty of women on there talking about porn. While Sloan argued that there was no evidence that inmates' porn consumption led to an increase in harassment of female correction officers, you have to wonder why, if there was no impact, these women complained in the first place. You have to wonder why, more generally, porn is banned in workplaces because women interpret it as sexual harassment, which is, illegal nowadays. Okay, those are two different things. You can't say, well, why is it banned in public places if it's not bad? Because that's not an appropriate place for it. It's why people don't show up to work naked, unless you're in porn, because that's not conducive to the working environment. It's why you don't drink alcohol at a workplace, unless you're in a bar, because it's not conducive to the work environment. There's a lot of things that you're not allowed to do that you can do outside of your work. And the reason why you can't do it at work is it's not conducive to a working environment. You're really grasping at straws here. You're really trying to say, well, if it's not allowed in the workplace, it shouldn't be allowed in the real world. Okay, let's go ahead and ban porn, alcohol, any suggestive reading material. Hell, let's ban all reading material. Let's go and burn some books. You want to do that? Let's ban the internet from society. Yeah, that'll really help your cause, wouldn't it? Despite the fact that this decision to ban porn was made with the safety of women in mind, Nareen and many others believe that this infringed on men's human rights. The thing is, hate speech and sexual harassment are not human rights. So this debate about porn access is not about rights at all. It's about privileges, specifically male privileges. This woman is a twit. She's a twit and a twat. Honestly. This is just embarrassing how anyone could be so deranged about this. I mean, if you don't like porn, you don't like porn, but don't say that, oh, it breeds this or that. Because we've shown that rape has gone down. Most violent crimes have gone down since the 90s. When the internet was introduced, the fact that our society has become more open about sexuality is indicative of the porn industry. Positive improvement. Incitement to violence is already a crime. We don't need to envelop this into hate speech. Hate speech is just one of those terms that's easy to use to justify censorship. It's true. Okay, so last article for the day, which kind of hits home for me. Can neuroscience explain why people are sexist? Neuroscientists, for obvious reasons, are really interested in finding out what's different about the brains of people with unpleasant personalities, such as narcissists, or unsavory habits like porn addiction. Their hope is that by studying these people's brains, we might learn more about the cause of bad character and ways to helpfully intervene. Now, to list a character flaw that receives a brain scattering treatment, we can appropriately add sexism. A new Japanese study published in Scientific Reports claimed to have found its neurological imprint. Hey, I have an idea. How about instead of doing stupid research like this, you come and help me, a person with actual neurological problem that my brain doesn't operate the way it's supposed to be a functioning member of society. How about instead of wasting your money with stupid research like this, you come and help fix my brain? How's that for an idea, huh? Or at least convince the state that I'm not able to work. Convince the government, the federal government, that I should be on disability. But no, let's go ahead and do stupid research like this. The research wanted to know whether there was something different about certain individuals' brains that potentially predisposes them to sexist beliefs and attitude. Of course, as with so much neuroscience research like this, it's very hard to disentangle whether any observed brain difference are the cause of consequence of a trait or behavior that's being studied, a point I'll come back to. More specifically, they were looking to see if people who publicly endorse gender inequality have brains that are anatomically different from people who believe in gender equality. In short, it seems the answer is yes. Neuroscientist blah blah at blah blah university and his colleagues have identified two brain areas where people who hold sexist attitude have different levels of gray matter density, basically a measure of how many brain cells are packed into a given area, as compared with people who profess a belief in gender equality. Their study doesn't speak to any subconsciously held sexist beliefs. What's more, these neural differences were correlated with psychological characteristics that could help explain some of people's sexist beliefs. So people are not at fault for their sexist belief. It's just something that they were predisposed to. The researchers scanned the brains of 681 students. The average age was 21. So they used students who were already pretty egalitarian to begin with. I'm sure their sex was measured against them as well, as we're about to see. Keep in mind that these were students. 306 of the participants were women, so about half, a little under half, and were also asked them to complete a measure of their belief in sexual role egalitarianism. I tried looking up this study, but it costs money for me to, and even then I doubt it'll really go over everything that I need it to, but I think it's bullshit. The scale is basically a series of statements that participants rated with their agreement with. Two examples are domestic chores should be shared between husbands and wives. Agreement would be a sign of high SRE, and bringing up children is the most important job for a woman. Agreeing with this would suggest a low SRE. Problem with these two questions, though, is there's a lot of nuance here. These are not simple answers to these questions, because technically they probably meant by domestic chores like, you know, sweeping, mopping the floors, doing dishes, doing the laundry, things like that. When I did the GSS study system, I had found that women tend to do those chores more often than men. That's what people reported. Interestingly, men were most likely to do some of the bigger stuff, such as mowing the lawn, lawn care, vehicle maintenance, house maintenance. And in that respect, they are actually sharing the workload of the house, okay? But if you look at just the chores that women do, men tend not to do them. So that's a very tough answer for that. It's not a simple yes or no answer. There's a lot of nuance. The second one, bringing up children is the most important job for women. Did you also ask the question, bringing up children is the most important job for a man? Because there's nuance there. I think bringing up children is the most important job for men and women. That's what we're designed to do. So I would have answered yes to this question, but also answered yes, that it's the most important job for men. But by this, it would suggest that it's a low SRE. So the correct answer is that no, it's not the most important job for a woman. Well, if you consider that if she doesn't have a child and properly take care of that child, then society would crumble. So it technically is the most important one. See, there's a lot of nuance to these questions. So that already tells me this is bullshit. People who score highly on this trait believe that sex of an individual should not influence the perception of his or her rights, abilities, obligations, and opportunities, as the author of the new study puts it. The participants also completed a host of other psych measures, including IQ and personality tests, and a questionnaire about the aggressive tendencies. Blabaw's team found that lower scores on the SRE scale tend to correlate in men and women having more dense gray matter and posterior whatever cortex, an area of the brain associated with processing things like anger, fear, and pain, and with reduced gray matter density in the right amygdala, another brain area that's very important to emotions, especially fear. Yeah, it's also associated with memory as well. In terms of their broader psychological profits, people who espouse sexist beliefs tend to score higher in their anger, depression proneness, and competitiveness, which fits previously published research into the personality correlations of sexism. Sorry. These new brain scan results suggest that there's something different about the brain structure of people with sexist belief. But what makes of these differences? It's very difficult, and here's some important stuff about this that puts all of this into context. It's very difficult to interpret simple anatomical differences because less volume in certain brain areas can sometimes be a good thing, for example, as a mark of a chess expertise, while other times it can be suggestive of a loss of function such as when the brain shrinks in Alzheimer's disease. In the concurrent context, we can at least look for clues in the other psychological stores the researchers collected. For example, they found that having more gray matter in the posterior part of the brain just didn't correlate with sexist belief, but also, albeit weakly, being more prone to anger and hostility. So it's a weak association, but they found it. And with being competitive. Meanwhile, having less gray matter in the right amygdala correlated weakly with higher scores of neuroticism among women and being more depressive. There's also some relevant prior research that's shown that reduced amygdala volume is associated with stress, anxiety, and depression. The new findings paint a picture of people, men and women, you know, purple is important, who hold sexist belief as psychologically vulnerable folks who are fearful and competitive. We need to be aware that this study hasn't proved that having a certain brain anatomy causes people to be sexist. That's very important. It's just as plausible that holding sexist beliefs change the brain, or that other factors, such as one's upbringing or social circumstances, shapes one's beliefs and brain structures. But it's probably fair to speculate that some people may have brain anatomy that predisposes them to be afraid of competition and cultural changes that could imperil their own interests, thus laying the foundation for their endorsement of gender inequality. See, you're taking something and trying desperately to fit it into this box. You're trying to take a circle peg and fit it into a square hole. Unfortunately, the circle is a lot bigger than that square, so it's not going to fit in. But you're trying to say, well, it actually does fit in if we trim it down a little bit so it does fit in. That's what you're doing. That's really the main point of all of this, is they may have found correlations, but in all honesty, they can't really prove anything. So I'm going to stop the screen share here. Let's take a look at some comments. Positive improvement. A proper gender equality questionnaire would ask every question twice with the genders reversed. And that is very true. And when I look at this, I think, you know, what were the questions? They used simplistic answers. And you can't do that, because the brain is complex. You can't use a simple questionnaire. A person, it more or less would have to be an essay question for every single one. And then every single one has to be determined by a panel of men and women, both feminists and men's rights activists, to give their individual judgment on this on a spectrum of if they're misandrous, misogynist, or truly egalitarian. Where do they fall into this spectrum? Then you could probably do your study and you probably get the opposite results, or you'd probably find that your studies wouldn't reveal anything at all. So, oh God, my head is starting to hurt. I need to stop this. Anyways, thank you for checking out my video today. I'm going to start doing these videos early in the week and later in the week. So check out my next one on Thursday, barring that I don't get invited to something else. And that way I can try to reduce this. This one was a bit long today, and I apologize for that. I am trying to cut these down. And I may start limiting myself to maybe 5 articles at a time. But I don't know. I felt like a lot of those articles were really important. So anyways, if you like what I'm doing, you want to try to help me out a little bit, especially with my medical problems, consider donating to my Patreon. There's a procedure that I want that's not covered by insurance that might actually help me, but it's going to cost me a lot of money. Plus, I want to try to use some of that money to increase the production value of these videos and also get health insurance. So consider checking out my Patreon down below. If, however, if you don't want to use Patreon, which I can understand, I also have my book listed down below. That's a link to the free ebook that I have, which acts as a prologue to my other book that costs about $3. So if you're not wanting to donate to Patreon, consider buying my book, which will also go to help me with my medical costs and also in furthering my writing career. Anyways, that does it for me. Thank you, Helena, Lycan, and Positive Improvement. I will see you Thursday, and this is Mad Cat signing off.